Also going to start this recording. Also going to start this recording. Also going to start this recording. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. This is the 10K Project, and I'm Talisha Shine. You usually see me or don't see me, is I guess the best way to put it, because I'm in the background typically. So it is nice to see everyone. And tonight we are here again with our Bet on Black pitch, and we have Mr. Lanier Richardson. He is actually a returning founder. As I was telling him before we started, he was actually here last April. So last year at this time, he was actually presenting his deal, and he's going to give us a little update on that, even though we've been following, kind of like stalking that deal for a minute. And he's also going to talk about his latest project. So Mr. Lanier, please introduce yourself and give us all the good details. I'm going to show the campaign here shortly, but I want you to introduce yourself first.
Good. I'll share the link as well. My name is Lanier Richardson. I'm the CEO of Chicago Trend. I'm excited to be back with the family, with the 10K family. I'm going to share a presentation deck about our work, as well as sharing and reviewing the campaign page tonight as well, and am open to any questions that anyone may have. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, and we are going to get started here. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share the actual pitch deck here. I mean, your campaign page, if you can see that here. So we're gonna, can everybody
Great.
see that?
Yeah, and I'll put the link in the chat, and I'll review
actually
that
put a
as well.
link in there too, so you don't even have to worry about
Okay,
that.
great,
So
great. And
we'll
then I'll
take that.
review
You know,
that too.
I'll be, like I said, I'm pulling double duty, so you just keep on rolling and I'll support you this way. So this one is actually on Small Change, which we've been here, and your last campaign was also on this. This is a real estate portal. You are at almost half of your offer here at $49,000, which is absolutely amazing. And you have 15 investors. This is ending, and we always, Mr. Wanna always says that 32 days, that May 10th is going to roll around real quick. So let's be very mindful of that. And here are some of the information. If any of you joined us yesterday, we talked about due diligence, and here are the actual documents to actually conduct that due diligence. So that is all right here and available to you. So this is why going to the campaign page is really important, so that you get the information as well as all the other peripheral information that the founders provide for you. So this is here for you. And again, like I said, this ends in 32 days. So be very mindful as we're having this discussion this evening, so you get all the information you need to make that decision.
Thank you.
All right, so you go right ahead and you can share.
Great. I'm going to share my screen. Good evening again. As I mentioned, I'm Lanier Richardson. I'm the CEO of Chicago Trend. I want to tell you all a little bit about our company and our mission and our strategy, and about our team, and about the shopping centers that we already own. And then I want to spend some time just reviewing the campaign page with details about our current offering. We started Chicago Trend in 2016. We started initially with seed capital, really a couple $100,000 grants, and then it turned into a $5 million loan from the MacArthur Foundation and the Chicago Community Trust. The origin story of our work is the MacArthur Foundation really wanted to develop a strategy about how to improve commercial corridors in neighborhoods on the south and the west sides of Chicago. As you know, the commercial corridor and commercial property, particularly in Black neighborhoods, are your first impression of the neighborhood. If the commercial property and the commercial corridor is blighted or under retailed, or it's liquor store, dollar store, check cashing only, typically that the commercial corridor becomes a liability for the neighborhood. Even if the homes are strong, if your first impression is of the neighborhood is of the commercial property and it's not truly an asset, it brings down property values. And so our work initially was to develop strategies and then to invest money into other Black entrepreneurs and Black developers in Chicago. We did all types of deals. We did a couple UPS store openings with Black entrepreneurs, a co-working and coffee shop. We did a performing arts center pre-development project with Harry Lennox, the actor who's opening a performing arts center in Chicago, and everything in between. And then 2020 happened, right? And I call 2020 the year of sort of pandemic, of protest, and a political pandemonium, right? That was my PPP. And what was clear is there was civil unrest in the neighborhoods that we were working in Chicago, Black neighborhoods. There were these big national calls for racial wealth gap closing strategies and initiatives. And I remember seeing a Black man standing in front of a store holding a sign that said, please don't wreck my store, it's Black owned. And I remember thinking, well, who owns the shopping center? And ultimately, later that day, it hit me like wealth is created by owning assets, assets that generate revenue, assets that appreciate over time, maybe assets that have tax advantages. That's houses, businesses, and stock. But our work was in commercial property. In fact, I have a long history in the shopping center industry. And was clear to me is that the shopping centers in majority Black neighborhoods weren't owned by us. They weren't, people who were leasing them weren't people of color. The property managers often weren't people of color. And I realized that we drive by these places, we patronize these places, but we don't have an ownership stake. And that became sort of our mission right after 2020. We decided to acquire what we call service-oriented shopping centers. Some people call them strip malls. I never liked that term, but service-oriented shopping centers in majority Black communities and intentionally with people in Black communities, inviting them there. We believe that we can strengthen neighborhoods. We developed an acquisition criteria. We buy properties in communities that are at least 51% African American, that have density, and we call them neighborhoods that are on the cusp of change. And the cusp really means something is either have been announced or anticipated to be announced, or the neighborhood is gentrifying, and we really want people of color to be at a seat at the table in a power seat. Or neighborhoods that if we don't do something, they'll continue to decline. And if we have government support to redevelop the neighborhood and redevelop the commercial property, it's an opportunity for us. Location is, fundamental to real estate. And in shopping centers, location really boils down to visibility, access, and parking. Can you see it? Can you get to it? And ultimately, is it convenient to park? Our tenants are not, don't think of Best Buy and West Elm and the Cheesecake Factory. What we own, and I'll show you in a few minutes, are shopping centers where the tenants are 30% are healthcare, the dentist, the MRI center, the pediatric, the daycare. We have centers that have, dialysis center, drugstores, pharmacies, and doctor's office, women's health centers. But we also have centers that have, in our shopping centers, we have tenants that are, the barbershop, the carry-out pizza, right? So these are service-oriented shopping centers. The nail salon, Amazon doesn't do manicures yet, so we call them non-Amazonable shopping centers. We buy shopping centers based on a cap rate, which is a way of valuing the property based on the net operating income that it generates, and that we ultimately believe we could do something to add value, even by improving leasing or developing adjacent properties. And we really like properties where the tenants have what is called triple net, where the tenants pay rent and contribute to the common area maintenance charges. I built a team. There are 10 of us now, full-time contractors. I founded the company with the guy, Bob Weisbord, down in the corner, who's a noted economic development thought leader. We've created some fabulous, people of color as executives. Will McIntosh has been with us the longest. He's our VP of Finance and Operation, a former PNC banker. Will Beckford for many years worked in economic development for the city of Baltimore and then at one of the big financial houses. Kay has commercial real estate experience at Jones Lang LaSalle and CBRE, and a full team. We have an affiliated nonprofit, and Emma Roberts leads our nonprofit CDC. This picture me. This is the best picture I have ever taken, so I keep it in every presentation. I started my career as a bank lawyer. And every day in the afternoon, I'd fall asleep at my desk because I thought the work was boring. At the time, the bank was making, $100 million, $200 million loans to big publicly traded companies. It wasn't until we got an opportunity where it was a pro bono assignment for me as a young lawyer, where the bank was loaning, a little less than $100,000 to a barber who was buying his building. And something about that, getting capital to communities, that resonated with me. That became my passion. I couldn't articulate it this way in my 20s when I was, doing the project. But over many years, I've come to love the thought of getting capital to people in the places that other people overlook or undervalue. They say it's too hard to do deals over there. The deal's too small, and that's been my passion. So I left the bank thereafter. I've had a long career in community, real estate, and economic development. When I was young, I was an SBA Young Entrepreneur of the Year as a home builder in Chicago. I developed, built, and sold, well over 300 single-family homes and townhomes. I left Chicago and ran the economic development organization for Cory Booker in Newark, New Jersey. Had a national role as a vice president of real estate for General Growth Properties, at the time the second largest owner, developer, and manager of shopping centers. And then when Cory Booker became Senator Booker is when I started Trend, and I also took a role as a faculty member, a full-time faculty member, and a professor at Rutgers Business School. So this is work that, again, for 30 years has been passion work. We own 5 shopping centers today, and we have a mission and a goal of acquiring 15 shopping centers in the next couple of years. And the cool thing is, it's not just about our company owning shopping centers, but our mission is to help create over 1,000 Black, local, low and moderate income residents, to intentionally create structures and intentionally invite people of color that have an ownership stake on the same terms as we are. And then ultimately, at some point, to have an exit by creating a REIT. We now have 334 investors, community investors in the 5 shopping centers that we own. 53% of those investors are Black. 58% reside in low and moderate income communities, and 42% are women. Intentionally inclusive doesn't mean exclusive. We have investors as far away as Australia. But the people invest with us because they want to earn a financial return, and as well as they want to be a part of community development and doing something positive in our neighborhoods. What I believe is that when people have a little ownership stake, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, that we all patronize and protect and respect the asset in a different way. And we're even branding something we call hashtag we own this. And the we doesn't even mean the 330 investors, 34 investors you see here. It's the connection and the ethos of ownership that we're sharing. That some of our investors, they have connections to, that's my grandmother or my church member or my fraternity brother or prom date or, someone I went to high school with or grade school with. So we really want people to have a connection to commercial property. As I mentioned, we own 5 shopping centers. We bought our first during 2020 and COVID. Small project, about 20,000 square feet. It's a suburb of Chicago, and that was our proof point where we demonstrated that we can create opportunities. We hired a Black property manager. We hired a Black leasing agent. We had to build out a store, and we engaged with a Black architect. The roof leaked. We had to find a Black roofer. Uh, Again, intentionally inclusive doesn't mean exclusive. We have other people that work on our properties, but we've been intentional about trying to find opportunities to contract with Black professionals and contractors. Even the landscaper at this property is African American. The second property we bought is we helped a Black-owned entrepreneur open a national franchise, a UPS store franchise, and now have that center at 100% occupied. The third center, we have a Black-owned co-working and coffee shop. It's a mixed-use property, not too far from downtown Chicago, close to the Bear Stadium in McCormick Place. And that neighborhood is rapidly changing. And we wanted people of color to have an ownership stake in a community that's changing. And that 10 years ago, it used to be a low and moderate income community. And now we're on the wrong, we're on the high income side of that line. And so ultimately, one day, this little property might be torn down. It might be a site for a high rise, but we'll be at the table as owners, either negotiating a partnership agreement or selling in a way that's advantageous to our investors. And we went to Baltimore. We bought our first property in 2021. This was a property that was a tough property. It was tough Baltimore, right? There was active drug dealing in front of the shopping center. This was a problem property that people really felt like the community's strong, but the shopping center, needs investment. And so we obtained now over $1.6 million of grants and subsidy from the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland. We've installed a new roof. We're putting a new facade on. We helped a Black couple open a new laundromat here, and the center is working. And then finally, as was mentioned last April, we were here and we launched our campaign for Edmondson Village Shopping Center. It was our largest project, about a $17 million acquisition. And we raised, $454,000 from 200 community investors. The significant part is not even the amount of money. It really is that we now have 200 and we're moving closer to 1,000 local investors and people of color who are investors. But at Edmondson Village, we're doing active renovations. In another month or two, we'll announce a new grocery store and a new coffee shop. So we really are excited about that work. So we think about this not just as real estate, right? So the shopping centers we think are, we call them local center of impact, an anchor where we can drive, change in communities and create opportunities for people of color. We put our little metric of we're improving the shopping center. We're involving community members. We're doing presentations in church basements and apartment building common areas to tell people, intentionally knocking on the door and say, do you want to own something in your neighborhood? I had a lady recently tell me, I've lived in this community for 43 years. Never called the community my own, but I've been a renter here. I don't own anything until I invested in the shopping centers. Our average investor has invested $2,275. That means many people have invested $1,000. Some people have invested $10 or $20 or $30,000. But our goal is that those people will help make the neighborhood stronger and ultimately will allow us to build a portfolio that's institutional quality. I want to spend a few minutes now telling you about the current offering, which is the Roseland Medical Center in Chicago. And I want to do that by highlighting the information that's on the crowdfunding page. This is contact information. I put my LinkedIn contact here as well, but we're about improving the quality of life, providing entrepreneurial opportunities and job growth, and ultimately creating wealth in Black communities and for Black investors. I'm gonna stop sharing the presentation deck and I wanna share the crowdfunding page for a second and just go through it with you. Give me 30 seconds. I thought I had it. Give me 1 minute.
Take your time.
Yep, let me see what I do with it. Yes. So the reason why I like the small change page. I call it a fintech tool. So it allows us to provide all the information to know that it's SEC compliant, so Securities Exchange Commission compliant, and it allows us to make our investment offering here. We do our uh, quarterly reporting here. You would get your 10K and tax documents here. So all of the information about the the investment and the project is on this page. What we look at is, again, we have the acquire the shopping center. We did the due diligence and determined that it needs about $2.5 million of equity. We have a fund. We have the capital. We're going to buy the shopping center. May 16th is our targeted closing date. If we raise $100,000, we're going to invest the other 2.4 million. If we raise $1 million, we're going to invest $1.2 million. We're going to invest the other $1.2 million. So our goal is, we have decided in all of the projects for a period of 60 days to intentionally invite Black, local, and other individuals who are interested in community development to invest alongside of us. All of the information about the offering is here. Pictures of the shopping center. There's a vacant lot that we have an opportunity to develop that's right behind the shopping center that comes as a part of our purchase. So there are pictures. On the page is all the information. A lot of what I just told you about our company, Chicago Trend, and our work, and informate the details of the shopping center. All of that is here. The business plan for the shopping center, as you will see, information about us again, but also the details of the property. The 5 shopping center I just showed you is 27,000 square feet. Right now, we like this property. It's 100% occupied, which means it has stable cash flow. It's across the street from a hospital, and it's part of what's called the Roseland Medical District. So there's been over $25 million allocated to redevelop the area around the shopping center. Again, our tenants are healthcare, a FQHC, an urgent care center, pharmacy, a dialysis center, and Subway and other restaurants and a salon. So this is right in our strike zone. We know that these tenants, I like these type of tenants because they, if they're making money, they pay rent. Okay? And they're providing services and that are needed, in our communities. I talk a little bit here about our mission of inclusive ownership, and my work as a non-resident fellow at the Brookings Institution, really studying the devaluation of property in Black neighborhoods and working with cities to develop efforts to help more people of color, quote unquote, buy back the block. This is, my bio as I share with you all of the finances about the project. Well, there's a summary page of what it's the $3.8 million first mortgage. There'll be equity here that will be a little over $2.5 million. And then and then how we use, we'll acquire the property, and there's some closing costs. The details, I'll show you in a second, all are here, right? So all people come on here and ask their questions. We respond to their questions. But as also, all of the documents are here. The business plan, the full disclosure package, the return calculator, how people think about getting their returns. What does it mean for you? So because it's SEC registered, my direction is to guide people back to this page when people say, well, what do we earn? What do we get? I have to sort of walk a line of saying, we invested here because as a project sponsor, we believe, the $2 million or $1.5 to $2 million that we'll invest here, we believe we're going to earn a return that looks like 12 or 15% over time. And so we are inviting other people to invest alongside of us. There's no guarantee. It's real estate. The offering talks about, the risk and rewards, but all of that information is here, for you to see. And so I just wanted to, please invite you to look at the material. It's very easy to invest. You click, you add some change, you put your information in, and you register. And as was mentioned, in the beginning of May, we're gonna if we raised $100,000 or $500,000, we're gonna close down the offering, invest the rest of the equity, and this will be the sixth shopping center that we own. So I'm inviting you, please, if you have any interest in having an ownership stake and being part of community development and part of our story, I'm inviting you intentionally to consider investing with us. And I'm looking forward to our discussion and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you.
So much for that. That was a wonderful presentation. And again, I love to see the progression of all of them because last time you were here, you were just at that. Like you had the 3 in Chicago, 1 in I think it was the Baltimore was the one you were talking about, and then you had one that was under contract in Columbus. So it was nice to see that these are all kind of still in the mix, and that there were
Yeah.
12. So now you're even closer to
Yeah.
your goal. You kind of
Yeah.
even extended it to 15, which is even nicer. Do have a few questions before we actually open up the chat with
Yes.
regard to this. So how do you and your team go about finding these properties for acquisition?
Yes, we typically have either been invited by one of the local philanthropic partners or economic development officials, mayor's office, because people see these properties in Black neighborhoods and they're, bringing the neighborhood down. People are
Mhm.
saying, can you come up with strategies? We engage with brokers who might say, here's something you can buy. That's why we put that sheet together of what our acquisition criterion is. That's on our website, chicagotrend.com. So that if someone said, hey, there's a shopping center in our neighborhood and there's a broker who you should talk to about buying it, it tells you what we're interested in buying. And so, we've used local relationships, leverage local relationships, uh, been invited by the political and economic development officials, and we have an active set of relationships with commercial real estate brokers.
That's awesome. Because I think there are so many communities that are truly needing some revitalization at this point. And it's hard, where do you see them and where do you assess? That becomes the issue here. And I know that you're looking for those particular ones with occupancies and whatnot. So that criteria is really important that you're using to find these properties, each and every one.
Yeah,
And
we like
one,
properties that um, have tenants already, right? So we're
yes.
buying cash flow, right? We're looking at there's income to pay the mortgage and pay the taxes and sort of service all of the responsibilities of the properties. But then over time, we are always looking for ways to add value, right? There's one project where we're working to put a new solar, panels on the roof, and we hope that our investors will now not only be investors in shopping centers, but climate positive investors.
Mhm.
There are opportunities where there's vacant property where we've created strategies to either sell or partner with individuals to develop that adjacent vacant property. And that's what we think we'll do at Roseland as well.
That's something. And I love this one is that the medical center is a big thing because so many medical centers are closing down. Hospitals across the country are closing, and the fact that you have that facility specifically in the FQCC is there as well. So that's an amazing thing because they're supplying a large amount of healthcare to the local community. So that's a very important part of the revitalization aspect too, that we got to keep these, health centers available to the community that most needs them. That's awesome. So we're going to get into some of these questions here. Anonymous
All right.
says, are you able to get capital if you have low credit, but you have a business plan and a projected goal to make money? I'm not sure that.
Can. So, I mean, we have helped entrepreneurs um, open business. You got to believe in the viability of the business plan. You got to understand the credit situation of the entrepreneur and really be able to say, this is something that we think will be successful here. In our shopping centers, the first thing is you want to make sure you believe the tenant will be profitable, because the tenant is profitable, there will be accretive and positive to the operations of the shopping center. So depends on the entrepreneur, it depends on the business and the location, but there's a case that can be made for capital that's based both on the narrative of what the entrepreneur story is and the vision is, and then the numbers is the pro forma for the project or for the business that's going to open, viable, believable, uh, and, and profitable ultimately.
Now, also, when you have those that are not 100% occupied, how do you actually source those vendors for the rest of the remaining occupancy?
So it's we have leasing our brokers and representatives that represent the property. We offer the space on all of the public listing services, and then we try to cultivate. Right, it's whether they're groups of Black entrepreneurs. One idea that we're excited about implementing in Baltimore is something we call the franchise initiative, where we connect Black entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs to national franchises. And then, the thought is that franchise, people recognize the brand, it's bringing a brand to our neighborhood, that people understand the potential of the neighborhood, people of color who live there and have some connection there. And, we ultimately try to facilitate both the connection, the leasing of the space, even provide some capital for the build out. That's been our goal. Our most recent success I mentioned, I'll find a little link and put it in the chat, is this Black couple opened a really, they invested $400,000-500,000 of their own capital in opening a first class laundry, and we were happy about that. We had an entrepreneur open a ice cream store, and Michelle Obama came to the store and says the best ice cream she had. Right, so all of those things are part of our strategy.
We have another question here from Lorana Edwards. She says, hello, I missed a portion of your presentation. I'm not sure if you covered this, so she's going to ask. She said, what are some investment returns that we can expect as a potential investor? And you did show that. So that's something that you can go, Lorena, on to the campaign page. And there are some documents there that'll calculate that out for you specifically so you can see it for yourself. And I have
Yeah, and Laura, I would add, so A, thank you for being here. B, because of the SEC rules, I'm sort of precluded from talking about investment returns. All of that is on the page. The way I, talk about it to not avoid the question is, we think that there'll be three ways that our investors will make money. That we will, A, be able to get distributions from, the operating income from the shopping center. B, at some point, it's hard to think about it now because we're new and it's, we're just buying the shopping center and interest rates are high. But typically, once value is created or some new development happens around the shopping centers or the leases are renewed, you can refinance and then pull some equity out. And then ultimately, there's an exit. And as I may have mentioned before you're on, we look at these properties where we believe that we can earn a 12 to 15% will be annualized return. And, we obviously believe that the people who invest with us will, on the same terms as we do, will have similar results. No promises. It's real estate. It's risk. I got to do all that caveating, but all of that information is on the crowdfunding small.
Yep, and I put that in the link. I gave that to her directly, and it's also in the chat for you, so you can take a look at that. And you did talk about your exit as a REIT, and I'd love for you to explain that a little bit more and go into a little more detail about that.
Right. So in these type of investments, the way you fully realize your returns, you have to exit. Right? So you buy it, you improve it, and then at some point you have to exit to be able to fully realize the return. You can hold it and continue to receive some distributions, but the goal is to at some point exit. There are dream scenarios, sort of three exit possibilities. Our dream scenario is what I alluded to in the presentation, is that once we get to about 15 shopping centers, we believe we can form a publicly traded shopping center REIT. And that's our dream. It's a lot of work we got to do that, and it's a whole lot of legal and other requirements to be able to get that done. But our thought then is that we would take the whole portfolio, sell it to the REIT, get other investors, and that the folks who've invested in each one of the individual shopping centers might sell their interests or sell 80% of their interest and get their investment return, but still have some remaining interest in the REIT. That's our dream scenario. Our sort of base case scenario is we will find another mission-oriented developer, whether that's a local CDC or some local organization, and we'll sell it to that person. Or, the third option is, by that time you have 10 set. These are all 7 to 10 year holds, right? So these are properties we expect to own. This is not quick fix and flip. We're going to put your $1,000 in, and tomorrow it's going to be $5,000. We're investing to make the neighborhood better. We're hoping that there'll be other development around the shopping center that we will help to catalyze, and that all will benefit to the ownership of the shopping center. And then ultimately, we could sell it to the highest bidder, right? So whoever the next person is that wants to own a shopping center that's been improved, that's been leased, we're maniacal about keeping clean and green, and so, if we improve the asset, we think, we'll have people that will recognize that value and ideally will pay for that value when it's time for us to exit.
That is amazing. That's a lofty dream, but definitely a viable dream.
Yes, yes.
That is something that again, allowing people to still capitalize and move it into perpetuity. I think that's a great way to look at the investment, because you're looking for your investment to grow, but sometimes there is a need for it to modify. And I think that's something that we also need to look at as a community. How do we invest today and have that investment evolve for tomorrow? And so that you're giving us that opportunity is we're grateful for that. And even just for the ability to have this opportunity, like you said, because you're going to buy this property with or without our assistance here. And it is nice that we get the opportunity. And I do want to stress that you came to us for that purpose. And again, this is your second time coming to us. So I would love for you to tell us, why did you return to the 10K?
So I am aligned with, the mission of 10K Pride. I love the team, so to speak. I love what you all are doing. 2, last time we got investors from the platform, right? And that's really what it's about. Again, this is, we could go to 3 or 4 white guys and raise capital easier, right? But the thought is, if we really are going to improve our communities, wealth is created by owning stuff, right? And whether the $1,000 won't change anybody's life. You invest $2,000 and we are even remarkably successful. But it's about an on-ramp to ownership, building a diverse portfolio of your investment opportunities, really getting the financial statements and information and the investor reports. And ideally, it will inspire, more people of color to look at owning commercial property and look at other investment opportunities in a different way. That's the mission part, of our work.
I do. I love that you had made that statement about the woman who had lived in her community for 43 years and didn't feel like she owned anything until she got a piece of that. And I think that's really empowering to our community, but also because that's a part of where you live. I know I have a hometown spirit, and I would love to see a part of my hometown in me, no matter where I lived or whatnot, but I would always like to see it thrive if I could, even if I didn't live there. And I do think that's a big part of what we need to do, because we're going to live bi-coastally at different points in time, but I think we need to ensure that we do have a piece of something for our own and by ourselves.
And our neighborhoods, as you look across the country, they've appreciated. There are places where, again, people say, oh, that's the hood, I can't figure it out. But the hood actually, as people are returning and returning to urban and, starting to look at cities as places that are viable and where there are amenities and, attraction and, transit, that's the type of neighborhoods that we're investing in. So whether you have a direct connection to this neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, on the west side of Baltimore, I'm investing in communities because I want to see them better, right? One of the shopping center we bought in August, about 8 months before we bought it, there was a shooting in the parking lot. And, people called me and said, are you still going to go through with the deal? And I said, yes, because we can make it better, right? So if you go past our shopping center in Baltimore today, you'll see signs on the perimeter of the property that said, this shopping center, 53% of the owners are African-American, right? That, we own this, right? And so we're going to make it better together.
We definitely applaud your efforts, and we definitely look to support you in every way that we possibly can. So this is the time where we give our final thoughts, and I'm going to tell you what Mr. Wana always tells you is to share that campaign. I'm going to put it back into the chat right now for you. And make sure you take a look and share this also. Share it wherever you think is good for you from your social platforms and also individuals that are interested in real estate. And this is again another way in which to participate in it. And we talked about this yesterday. It's not a recommendation because you still have to do the due diligence, but all that is available to you if you just simply share the link and say, all the information is here. You may think this is interesting. Take a look. And that's what we're asking you to do this evening, is to share that. We do have another question here
Sure.
from Edward. He says, have you ever thought about using the lot for more businesses? I guess that's for your current property.
Yeah, so in each one, that's the goal. So you're trying to figure out what's in real estate, the term is the highest and best use, right? Should it be additional retail? Can it be additional facility for the hospital? The cool thing about Roseland Medical Center, I didn't mention, but it's in the materials, is there's been a $4 billion announcement of the extension of the transit line. And it literally is at the corner, half a block from our shopping center. There's going to be a new train stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so there should be a development around that train stop. And ideally, again, that train stop will increase the value and the perception of our property and more people, passing by it. So, what happens with that vacant property is what we're going to be strategizing about for the next couple of years until we either say, is it housing? Is it multifamily housing? Is it additional retail? Is it some type of hospital use? That's the nature of the work that, we'll be doing together, and we'll be reporting out to our investors, our thinking and any deals that are structured, to maximize value from that vacant property.
That's awesome. And so this one you said is closing, you're looking to close May 16th. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to close sometime between May 16th and, June 15th, right? The holidays
Okay.
and all that stuff. But we'll close the offering on May 10th, and typically a week or two thereafter we'll close on the acquisition of the shopping center.
Miss Patrice has a question. She said, are the tenants encouraged to be a part of your deals?
So the cool thing is we have one of the properties I put on the screen, we have one of the tenants that owns 16% of the equity. So it's a Black entrepreneur who's been operating a business, again, in a neighborhood that's changing, right? People always talk about gentrification in terms of residential, like we got priced out, but there's also commercial gentrification where Black-owned businesses. I was in Jersey City about a couple of years ago, and someone said, man, Jersey City is changing and gentrifying so fast. We can't even own property on MLK anymore, right? So part of our strategy is creating opportunities and inviting the tenants to the extent that they're interested. They get the link. They come to these community presentations. We welcome as investors.
That is amazing for that to be owners and, truly investment in there. So that gives them a double dip in their own success. So that's awesome.
Right.
Well, any other questions, community? Let me know. I'm going to check Facebook here to see if there's any questions. I don't think so.
Please look at the campaign. I put my LinkedIn connection here is the social media I use for business purposes. So, if there are questions, and as the SEC compliant site says, if there are any questions, post them on the site. And as I was showing the site tonight, I saw that a few people had posted some questions, so I got to go in and answer those questions. And the thesis is that everybody gets the same information. You
Right, and
tell
that's a great way. Yeah, if you
the
think about it.
financial guru something, and you don't tell the grandmother something different, and so everybody gets, you're democratizing information and ultimately democratizing ownership.
And it's a great FAQ. I always say it's a great way to see what questions that you may not have even thought of. Sometimes I go to the campaign page and I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that particular thing, and it's already answered for you. And another tip for if you go from us, just when you go to that campaign page and you leave a question, just hashtag it with the 10K project so that it's from us.
Great.
So that we have that information. If we can help in any other way to facilitate that, answer that question, we will definitely do so as well. So we want to thank you again for returning to us as always. We hope to keep coming back. Every project that you have, you come and see us. So we're going to give you the final word for this evening before we close out.
Now, this is fam, so I'm happy to be returning to family, and the dream scenario is, we're going to all both make some money and have a financial return, but we're going to make our communities better as well. And the last thing I always tell people in this context is there's an old political statement. It's called, they hashtag it as Emily, EMILY.
Mhm.
Early money is like yeast. So if you can invest early, it helps build momentum and it grows. So if you're inclined, if you like what you heard, if you go to the website and you see the details of the project, I'm encouraging you to invest early and help us build momentum around ownership, helping more people of color own commercial property.
Yes, well, thank you so much again. And everyone have a wonderful evening. And we will be back next Tuesday with another wonderful Bet on Backbench. Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone. I see the notes in the chat. Thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Good night.
Good
Good night. I
night.
can't respond, but I just thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.